Angelyn Toth, thank you so much for being here with me.
Thank you, Marianne. It's a real honor to be here with you today. I met you many years ago in Vancouver at a church that you talked at, like decades ago.
Wow. Well, I've always enjoyed it when I've been in Canada. So I'm glad that we got a chance to meet again. And I have read your book, Radical Trust, and I was very moved by your story. And what was very clear reading your book is that we normally have a lot of voices in our head, and they are not to be trusted all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times those are voices of fear. They're voices of a world that is chaotic and somewhat fractured, even insane right now.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're saying and what you experienced in your life is that there's another kind of voice within. There's another kind of guidance system, not from outside, but inside. And your point is that we can live radically trusting that internal guidance. Is that true?
Absolutely. And it's not always easy, because to separate, well, what is the voice of the deep inner knowing versus all the other voices, the conditioning, the mom, the dad, the teacher, etc. And so the journey really is to get clear about what is that intelligence that actually knows things that I couldn't possibly know right now. And it did take me much of my life being able to get to the point of, radical trust. I trusted, mm-hmm. but to like 100% meant I had to kind of hand everything over and really be following that deep inner, this intrinsic knowing. And people have said to me, well, how do you know? And I said, you know when it's coming from that space, Whereas if it doesn't, it's probably another voice in your head.
Some people see this in religious terms, of course, the voice for God, the voice of the Holy Spirit. Some people see it as a voice of intuition. I know in A Course in Miracles, the answer to whether you know that's correct is that if you feel at peace,
mm-hmm.
That's true.
Absolutely. Even if you're being asked to do something ridiculous, it doesn't make sense and you don't want to do it, but you're being guided in a certain direction. And you're like, no way, never know how. But if you stop and let everything settle for a moment or two, you do feel that peace and support to go in that certain direction. So yeah, it is that space. You feel very, very peaceful.
I think sometimes we've all had the experience of not listening to that voice inside. Something said, go to Boston. But everything rational inside you said, no, I should go to Atlanta. And then 6 months later, things unfold and I should have gone to Boston. We've all had that. We've all had the experience of saying, I knew it. And I know in the Course in Miracles, Angelyn, it says sometimes when the Holy Spirit speaks to you, it will seem startling. Because the voice within knows things that are going to happen around the bend. It knows the future. It knows things that you couldn't know with your rational mind.
Yes.
So in your book, what's so fascinating about the book is you trusted that sense of guidance within yourself in a situation where you talk about your own father coming out and looking at you like you were insane. Mm-hmm. Tell us that story. What happened in your own life where you radically trusted and had certain results that might not have been considered coming from a wise move at the beginning?
Well, actually, this is where I really understood, because I was in a relationship. I actually had separated from my husband 3 years earlier, and I was in a new relationship for about a year with a beloved, wonderful man, and we were happy. And I got a message in Breitenbush in the hot springs one day. I heard it for the first time. You have to go back with your husband. And I'm like, no, that wasn't a good thing. No way. I ignored it for about a week, but it was just a deep inner, knowing. And everybody, when I mentioned it to a few people, they're like, why would you? You're sabotaging yourself. That would be an awful thing to do. I actually did go back because the voice was so clear and I didn't understand it, but I had to follow it. And I went back for 3 months and 12 hours. I always remember the 12 hours, and it was a nightmare, a mistake. It wasn't a mistake, but it felt like a mistake. I thought I didn't listen properly. I was wrong with my intuition. What was I doing? A lot of friends wouldn't speak to me, and my family thought I was sabotaging my life. it was 11 months later that my husband passed away suddenly and unexpectedly. And, it took me a couple of years to unwind everything and go through the grieving and the financial and the legal. But what I found out from the lawyers was if I hadn't gone back for 3 months, it cleared off the 3 years before. If I hadn't gone back, it would have been like 4 years and considered a de facto divorce in the law, in the courts. And the inheritance and insurances and things would not have come to me to create my vision. Instead, it would have been held up. So I'm like, the significance of that 3 months, it had to be 3 months, not 2 months, 3 months, wiped off the other 3 years. And it was like 1 year and everything came to me for this vision. But it seemed crazy. And I really started to understand it over the years when the vision started and I started to see the truth of what this was.
Right. So your husband died, and because you had gone back for 3 months, you got this money, and you felt that the money was to be used for the purpose of this vision that you had for a retreat center, right?
Yes.
But even then, when you saw the land that you thought would be perfect, again, people said, "What are you, crazy?" Right?
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah, my dad came from England, and I'm showing him all around because I had the vision crystal clear. I could see what it was to be, and I was describing it to him from what was in my head, but all he could see was this broken down derelict sheep farm. And he's like, "Oh my God, Angelyn, what have you done? Oh my God, what have you done? This is a mistake," And it was funny because it was a number of years later he came back, and we'd already done a lot of renovations and it was thriving and a lot of things were happening. And he says, "This isn't the same place." And then he said to me, "Angelyn, if anybody could pull it off, it's you." And I'm like, "Why didn't you tell me that 3 years ago?" Because I actually nearly, sold it again because I thought I had made a mistake with that as well. But again, just at that perfect time, I received a message, a phone call actually from somebody that used to own the land when I thought I had to kind of give up. And she said to me, "Angelyn, can I ask you a personal question?" And I said, "Of course." She said, "Do you believe in a higher intelligence?" And it's funny because in that moment, I just went, "Oh my God, yes, I forgot. I thought it was all about me figuring all this out." She said, "Then all you have to do is become clear and everything will be provided."
That you don't even need to know how. The radical trust involves, you just need to know the what, the openness to it, and the how will be provided. So you began this retreat center, and now thousands of people come, and people, the whole point of being at the retreat center is to dwell in that silence, be in nature, to enable people to get closer to that voice so that they too can practice radical trust. Is that the idea?
That's the biggest message, really, Marianne, is nature is ever so available, and silence you can really hear what's going on. You can also hear the blah, blah, blah. But even that, a lot of people don't hear in day-to-day life. Mm-hmm. So once you start to really come inside and know what's going on and trust more and more that inner guidance, then those beautiful visions and dreams and things that you've had, you can actually just take the next step. That's it. Just the next step. So when they come, it's 26 years now, the retreat has been around. And one of the things people always say, they love, it feels like home. They love the silence, the stillness, the nature, the horses. And it all ties into helping people to find their creativity and their inner guidance. And that's what I'm passionate about.
And when you say they feel they've come home, it's so interesting, isn't it? How the silence, the profound silence in nature helps us find that profound silence within ourselves. That is home, isn't it?
It's home, and there's not a single problem in that space. There's not a single problem when we stay present in nature. And if we can stay with that and keep taking the steps and come back to it as often as possible. People often leave here and they say, "Oh my God, I want to take Xenia with me. I want to, stay here forever." And some people have stayed 3-4 years, but I say, take it with you. this experience, it's a new reference point, and you can call upon it anytime, because there is no real separation. So just know that it's always within you.
For those who see this in religious and spiritual terms, is this the connection that prayer and meditation give us?
Yes. And, I grew up Roman Catholic, and I kind of turned away from it as a young girl. I thought, I can't believe a lot of the dogma. So I wouldn't even look at a book. In fact, I think your book, many, many decades ago was when I started going, okay, she's talking about, the divine, whatever, or God. And I started to open those books. But I really went from being very quite shut down from a religious point of view to starting to realize really we're all talking about the same thing.
Yes.
We're all, I don't care what religion, what faith, whether you're religious or spiritual. I'm more spiritual in that way, but I don't see any confusion or restriction with any of it. It's all one. We're all talking about the same thing.
I agree with you, and I think there's more and more of an understanding. Some people would say, I'm going to Xenia to find the voice for God within myself. Some people would say to experience the radical trust of my own intuition.
Mhm.
But it is the idea of a natural intelligence in the universe that can help us live our lives far more effectively. And I think we all need guides to help us, and need places to go, and need books to read to help us. And you, Angelyn Toth, with your book and with your retreat center, are exactly the guide and exactly the footsteps that so many people need, and really one of the bright shining lights in this very, very important element of life. So thank you so much, and may the blessing that Xenia has been on the world already be only multiplied in the years ahead.
Oh, thank you, Marianne. That's very sweet. And one day I'd love to see you here.
The more you talked today, the more I thought I'd love to go there myself. So I hope you will.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.